Hello, book connectors. Hey, blue-eyed black devil, what you know good? Well, book connectors, I'm glad you asked. Welcome back to the Book Connection. I am your host, Blue-eyed Black Devil, and what I know good, book connectors, is I am back with another video, and this time it is for the book. We are all guilty here, so come on in, come on. Let's talk. So you see the title and you see the author, Karin Slaughter. Now, I did feature her some months ago, may have even been as long as a year ago. I featured her in one of my segments called About the Author. At that time, I featured her in that segment. I hadn't read anything by her. Now that I have, I will tell you this is the first book I've read of hers, but it won't be my last one. I have a couple of her books on my wish list that I hope to get around to reading sometime, within the rest of this year, first of next year. So anyway, we are all guilty here. There are 20 chapters in this book, and the first 10 is all about it tells the story of the people who live in it and all of this. But then the second half deals with just the main character and her family. All right, so this story takes place in small town Georgia. I believe the community or town is called North Falls, Georgia. And the main family in the town is the Clifton family. Gerald Clifton is the police chief, and his daughter, Emmy Lou, she's married. I don't remember her last name. Marriage didn't work out, so I didn't pay attention to the last name. But when she and her husband broke up, she and their son, Cole, moved in with her parents, Cole's grandparents. Now, the Clifton family runs the runs the community. His wife, Emily's mother, Myrna, well, the whole family has some peculiarities. I'll say that's what Myrna's is. She taught English when she was working. And she is, I don't know, some sort of an extreme stickler for speaking correct English. She just constantly corrects people all the time. And then Emmy Lou is the youngest of 4 children. Her brother, Tommy, marries a woman, Celia, who eventually becomes the high school principal. But she, like her mother-in-law, Myrna, has the same particular quirk. It just drives them nuts for people to speak incorrect grammar, use incorrect punctuation. Colloquialism is out the window for these two. Okay, that's those two. Now, the only other thing about them is they don't really get along at all. They just don't, never have. It really never explained why. But they didn't do anything to cause, friction or anything with them and other people in their lives. They just didn't get along. The only thing they seem to agree with is their love for Tommy. All right, that's them. But now, there's another side of Clifton families, and they're just eccentric. They're not even, I don't know. They're just eccentric. They'll do things like, because it's been a minute since I read the book, so I'm going on memory. But I can remember them doing things like, say, just out of nowhere, someone decides to throw a Sunday family brunch, no men included. Or it may be something like if you attend the brunch, you have to bring dishes that have a particular color. Say, you may say, all dishes must be yellow. If you bring in greens or browns or reds or whites, it won't be put out. They were just goofy like that. Except for Gerald and Emmy Lou. Now, getting back to them, Gerald and Myrna, had 4 children. Their oldest son, Henry, drowned when he was, I think, 16. And then their oldest daughter's name is Martha. Martha, well, when she became a teenager, she got out there and she started doing things that she shouldn't do. Like she started drinking and running around and doing things. Then she eventually started doing drugs, as if alcohol is not one. But anyway, at some point, Martha gets pregnant, and she has a little girl. But she was still, at this time, she wasn't living with, she was staying there until she got pregnant and stuff. She moved out. Well, something happened. Hold on. She tried to take care of her daughter, but, she just kind of came across hard times. So she took her daughter to her parents. When she came back for her daughter, they gave her an ultimatum. Well, you have 2 choices that you just need to pick one. You can either take your daughter and go raise her on your own, or you can leave your daughter here with us and we will raise her. And so Martha decided, overall, no matter whatever's going on with her and her parents, she did know that they would make sure that her daughter would be raised. Martha did marry her daughter's father, but it didn't last, and her family wasn't aware of it. Like I say, they are in North Falls, Georgia. But when Martha decided to leave her daughter with her parents, she moved clean across the country. She moved to California, and at some point, she decided to clean herself up, so she stopped doing the hard drugs and the drinking and smoking the weed and whatever else she was doing. She did that. This lady went out and she ended up getting her PhD in some sort of psychology. I can't remember what it was. And she had worked for 37 years with the CIA, and she was trying to switch over to some form of psychology. So she was sitting there on the internet one day, just kind of mindlessly seeing what was out there, and she comes across an article from, what do you know, her hometown, North Falls, Georgia. So she reads the article, and there she learns that her sister, Emmy Lou, is now the sheriff, and their father, Gerald Clifton, is still the police chief. 2 teenagers have come up missing and then later found to be deceased. And so it interested her when she left home it was 40 years ago. She just never looked back. They never heard from her. But because they didn't hear from her, they never assumed that she was no longer living. So she picks up and she decides, maybe I'll pay the town a visit. Now, that's Martha. Emmy Lou has a best friend named Hannah. Hannah's daughter is actually her stepdaughter. Madison is her name. Madison's mother passed away when Madison was like 7 or 8. Hannah just kind of stepped in. Not that her dad couldn't take care of her, but she knew that Madison needed some female guidance in her life. And eventually, Hannah and Madison's father, Jack, got married and had a son of their own. Well, then, that is Madison. Hannah's best friend is Emmy Lou. They have been best friends since elementary school, I believe as far back as kindergarten. A new girl, Cheyenne, moves to town who is Madison's age, and they become fast best friends. You just didn't see one without the other. And this particular day was no different. It's the 4th of July celebration. So the whole town is out here celebrating. Madison and Cheyenne plan to slip away to go get into some fun of their own. But while Madison is standing around waiting on Cheyenne to come, Emmy Lou goes and talks to her because they're like, Emmy Lou and Cheyenne are 15 or 16 years old. So Emmy Lou just kind of walks up to her and just started asking her questions like, well, have you decided what college you're going to go to and what are you thinking about studying and just stuff like that. Just making small talk, but it was really irritating Madison. She just kept wanting Cheyenne to show up, so eventually she breaks away from Emmy Lou. And I think they were supposed to meet up at a certain time. Let's just say the time was like 11 o'clock, 15 after 11, no Cheyenne. And now Madison is really becoming alarmed, and everybody knows that these two are buddies. So, but nobody has seen Cheyenne. Well, eventually, Cheyenne shows up, but she's driving. She slipped and drove her father's prized vehicle. I forget what kind of car it was, but whatever it was, the dad, that was his pride and joy. And Cheyenne wasn't supposed to be driving it. So, okay, Madison is relieved. About time you showed up, Cheyenne. But then, as Madison goes walking towards the car, she notices that something is odd. She noticed that Cheyenne had put her bicycle in the trunk of the car, but the trunk did not close all the way. And Cheyenne's bike was painted some sort of blue that was, you just didn't really see anybody else in the town with a bike that shade of blue. So Madison was like, oh my gosh, Cheyenne. She thought Cheyenne was driving the car. Turns out someone had just pushed the car there. And then they went on about their business. So Madison goes to the trunk and she sees Cheyenne's arm sticking out of the trunk. She's like, good grief, Cheyenne, you're getting, what's going on? You're not doing. She went to go help her get out of the trunk of the car. And that's when she sees a bright red stripe, 3 of them on one of her arms, and then she sees that there's like a pool of blood. She did go to try to tell Emmy Lou what she found, but at that time, Emmy Lou had just got through arguing with her husband, Jonah, and so she kind of dismissed or blew Madison off. Well, when the girls end up deceased, Hannah learns that Madison tried to talk to Emmy Lou and what happened, and so she decides to take it all out on Emmy Lou, telling her, we a lot of people tried to tell you in the first place not to get involved with Jonah, blah blah, all this stuff. She probably did tell her that, but it just came up again when the girl ended up dead. So she just kind of, I think, on surface level, it appeared that she actually hated Emmy Lou because Madison was no longer living. Then Cheyenne's family felt like Madison had turned Cheyenne out, but nothing was further from the truth. Cheyenne was the girl, the big city girl who moves into small town South, and she exposes Madison to a lot of things. Well, none of this was really found out until after their demise. The biggest thing that came out is that we find out that these two young ladies were prostituting themselves. That's right, and they weren't going after guys they go to school with. Oh, no, no, no. They wanted real men, grown men who had wives and children. That because kids their age just didn't have the money that the girls were after. And it's not like they were growing up in poverty, but they always knew that the things they wanted, their families couldn't or either wouldn't give that to them because of their ages. So they start selling themselves. And let me wrap this up because I'm trying to get away from these real long videos. Okay, so like I said, they did end up deceased. And the one that did it worked every day alongside Emmy Lou and her father. Virgil. His name was Virgil. He was the one that off these girls because at some point he just felt like they were trying to do the most and he could not have his reputation being sullied, so he just offed them. That's a terrible way to do. But now that they are no longer here, Hannah's husband, Jack, never could get over the loss of his daughter, Madison. So one day a big fight broke out somewhere, and Jack ends up shooting. He was aiming, I believe, for Emmy Lou, but Gerald was the one that went down, and that's how he was deleted. He was already getting ready to retire. He hadn't been long told Emmy Lou and Tommy that he had been diagnosed with lung cancer. But now this is where we go into part 2 of the book. Now, remember I told you Martha, their oldest daughter, had left home at age 16. And she did her thing. Well, come to find out, yes, she left home because they wouldn't tolerate her behavior. But what do you know? Gerald had an issue with substance abuse in his young life. Late teenage, early to mid adulthood. He was out there doing the same types of things that Martha was doing. Now, when Martha left and she came back 40 years later, she no longer went by the name Martha. She went by her lesser name, which was Jude. I don't know if it was Martha Jude or Jude Martha, but she went by Jude. And so she and Emmy Lou had a few disagreements, but for the most part, Emmy Lou could not have cracked the case without Jude, and Jude would never have known what was going on with her parents had she just stayed out of town. So, okay, they wrapped that the case of Gerald was deleted. Jack is up in prison, but so does Hannah. They're trying to see who knew what about, how much about what. So Emmy Lou one day decides to go over to the jail, and she and Hannah talked a little bit. I don't remember if they apologized to one another, but when Emmy Lou left there, she felt like, maybe they could start to repair their relationship. Emmy Lou's mother, Myrna, did end up in a facility when her dementia got to be too much for them to handle there at the house. I think it became physically taxing on Gerald to do things with his wife and still try to go to work and go to doctor's appointments of his own and things like that. Okay, so I don't know if I said earlier, but I should have. We've heard of stories within stories. This book isn't, well, it does that, but it goes a step further. It is a story within a story within a story. Okay, we learned that the two teenage girls who were deleted early into the story, we learned that they were prostituting themselves with grown men, and they managed to keep it a secret in this small town for quite some while. This fate out of the classes, knowing that this is what they were into. Oh, yeah, and they were also small-time drug dealers. Now, the other story was when we learned that Gerald, despite his daughter doing the same types of things he did, it just didn't come out until toward the middle of the end of the book about Gerald's past and all of that. And see, when Jude and Tommy and Henry were growing up, their dad was out there doing this stuff, so they saw a totally different side of their dad that Emmy Lou ever did. Not only did Emmy Lou not see his dad acting the way that he used to act, neither Tommy nor Myrna ever bought it up once Jill decided to get clean when Emmy Lou entered the picture. Okay. Okay. But the final straw, the third of the story, is that when Jude left her baby there with her parents, guess who that baby is? That's right, none other than Emmy Lou. Emmy Lou is Jude's daughter. Now, Jude knows this, and she knew that her parents and Tommy should have been aware of this. But nobody bothered to tell Emmy Lou that Jude is her mother. So I am hoping that this is going to be a serial, because I would love to see how the story between Jude and Emmy Lou unfolds. That wraps this book up, Book Connectors. At the beginning, when I was like, hello, Book Connectors, and someone says, or the second person says, hey, Book Connectors, what you know good? I know all of that was me. But I did that because I feel like I'm talking to myself. I'm not getting any feedback again. I don't know if it's, well, I feel like it's YouTube. Anyway, but I'm going to put this video up and out, and I'll continue to talk to myself whenever I feel like I have a story to tell. And if you do happen to run across this video, sometimes you may have to type my name in to look for me. I'm still here. But if you do happen to cross the video, subscribers especially, you all, thank you so much for being subscribed. Visitors, feel free to join us at any given time here on this channel. We'd love to have you here, and if you do, I think you won't regret being over here with us. And everyone, please do not forget to like, share, comment respectfully, and by all means, make sure that your notification bells are not only turned on, but set to all. So you'll know every time YouTube decides to let one of my videos go through. And with all of that being said, book connectors, remember this. As long as there are books around, there is always something to read. And until we read again, book connectors, be safe out there. By the time you see this video, it will probably be Wednesday, February 25th. So happy hump day. Have the rest of a hopefully wonderful work week. Be careful out there, and most of all, be safe. And God bless.